You can start, Tejas. Please go ahead.
Okay, so good evening, everyone. I'm Tejas Chintala. Today, I'm going to present a topic which is important in data science as well as in finance and business. The topic is time series analysis. Does anyone have any idea of time series, or has anybody studied about it earlier? They might get this presentation easy. They will able to understand. Is there anyone here? Okay, okay. Okay, then we'll start with the presentation. So, what is time series? Time series is data is a sequence of information that attaches a time period to each value or metrics. Any metrics that is measured over regular time intervals forms a time series. It is so we can we can identify any metrics or any value, and we can associate it with any time data. For example, like how humidity in air, how humidity present in air varies with time. Like during daytime, the humidity will be very high, but then at night, it will reduce. Humidity will reduce. So that's how time series works. We'll associate any metrics with a given time data, and it helps us to predict future values based on previously observed values. So if we take an example like how weather forecasts how people forecast weather, like how they predict weather for coming 7 days. So they'll analyze the data of the previous 7 days or the previous few days, like whether it's sunny or whether there will be a forecast. But that's how time series works. So there are some components of time series. So there are four components like seasonality, trend, cyclic variation, random and irregular variations. So let's see the first component. Am I audible?
Yes, yes.
Okay, okay. I thought I was okay. No problem. Okay, so we'll start with seasonality. So seasonality is one of the components of time series. It is defined as variations that repeat over a specific period, such as day, week, month, season, etc. So like if we see a graph, so it's always of a fixed and known period. You have to remember this. It's a fixed and known period. So, like if we see, for example, like I've given here, a gift shop will experience an increase in sales during the festival season, like Christmas. So the gift shop, we see that during the festival season only, there will be a spike in the sales. There will be increase in the sales of his gifts, and there will be more number of customers. So we'll be able to observe this increase only the last week of December for all the years. So if we analyze the data for every year, like for 2019 or even before the 1817, so we'll see that in the month of December, there will be a abnormal rise. There will be a rise in the sales. There will be rise in the sales, and then in the maybe in the other months there won't be that many sales in like how it is in December. So we see like there's a period like every December of the every year we'll get to find this variation. This is how seasonality works. We can give another example like how people like in Google people search for keyword like diet. So like when do they usually search for the diet keyword? Like people when they make resolutions. like every time New Year resolutions. So at the month of January, the people will find the word of the keyword diet. It will be the occurrence will be more than compared to any other month. So that's how seasonality works. So it depends on the day, depends on the time, this one time factor or calendar, how a calendar, the calendar factor, like a month or a season. This is what seasonality is all about. Next, we go to a trend. Trend is another component of a time series. So it can be defined as the variation that move up or down in a reasonable, predictable pattern. It is a movement to relatively higher or lower values over a long period of time. The action appears for some time and disappears. So basically, trend, and I've given an example of growing trend in the stock prices. So basically, if we analyze a graph, we see that uh, there's a positive trend or a negative trend. That means like either the graph is increasing or it's decreasing at a, so it's like a continuous increase or continuous decrease. For example, like if we find like how like if we find a fashion, like how fashion changes during every time, like for like if a person, like if there's a trend for polka dot shirts, so there will be increase, so people will be more engrossed in wearing those shirts, and there will be increase in the sales. There will be continuous increase in the sales of the shirts, of that type of shirts, and there will be positive trend. So afterwards, if the fashion changes, if the trend changes, so then there will be a less sale of that shirts. So we'll find that there will be a trend, the sales will be very, so the trend will be in the negative way. This is all about trend as a component of time series. Moving on to cyclic variations. Basically, cyclic variations is a pattern. It's a pattern. This pattern exists when data exhibit rise and fall that are not of fixed period. These variations correspond with business or economic boom bust cycles. Sorry. So basically, and many people confuse cyclic behavior with seasonality. So if the, like I'll explain this point. Like if the fluctuations are not of fixed period, then they're cyclic. But if the period is unchanging and associated with some aspect of the calendar, then the pattern is seasonal. So if we observe its seasonal patterns, so it is influenced by some factors like time factors, like seasonal factors. Like hence it is called like a times. This time series is called periodic time series. Here the seasonality is a for fixed period. Like I've given the example of the gift shop. We only find this increase in the sales only in the month of December. So we see that every December there's a sudden increase in the sales, like a huge spike in the sales. So this period is every December month of every year. But if in case of cyclic pattern, there's like if we compare, if I give an example of a business. So in business cycles, usually it lasts several years. So like in the business, we can see that the cycle, like either the business can increase in success or decrease in anything. It can increase in sales or decrease in sales, but we don't know when it can increase and decrease. So it's very sudden. Like we even don't know the length of the current cycle beforehand, before we see the increase in sales or decrease in um, sales. So that's why cyclic variation, when we see this graphs, is most commonly in the business sectors. Like we'll see a peak and a trough of in a graph. This is the difference between seasonality and a cyclic variation of the behavior. moving forward to random variation. This is the last component. This component occurs due to sudden causes called residual variation. It is due to erratic fluctuations of data that are difficult to predict. It does not fall under any of the above three classifications. So if we, like, for example, like how the COVID-19 pandemic has led to the decline in the global economy. Like if we say,
Tejas, Tejas,
yes, yes,
are you showing the graph also, or are you only talking on this particular PPT?
I'm showing the PPT. I'm showing the PPT right now.
Okay, when will you show the graph?
Yeah, that's the next slide.
Okay, no problem. We'll wait. Thank you.
Okay, okay. So where was acha? Okay, so I was here in the, like, if we see the global economy chart, like for the past like 50 years or maybe this, so we'll see that there will be there will be a sudden decrease in this in the global economy of the world. So nobody could have predicted about this pandemic. No one has. So that's why it's this. There will be a difficult. So there will be a sudden fluctuation or change in the graph. Like see this example. So here, this is a random, like a sketch of the graph, like to understand the different components. Like for trend, if we see like the first graph, the trend is increasing, like there's a positive increase, and we can see there's a random movement also.
Tejas, can you kindly go to the slide which is showing the graph? We guys can't see it. We just see the seasonality slide, which is your slide number 4. Beyond that, we guys can't see.
Oh, okay, okay. Let me check once. Is it visible?
No, Tejas, I think that you have only shared a one window. So the window that is presenting these slides is not visible to us. Like I mean, slideshow is not visible to us. So either you have
Right
to share all the
now, right now, what is visible on the screen? Like,
Seasonality.
okay, the seasonality slide.
The seasonality. Yeah.
Okay, just a second, guys. Uh, is it visible right now? Like I'm changing the slides, so can you see the other slides other than the seasonality?
See, what has happened is when you shared your screen, you have not shared the complete screen, you have shared one window. So what is happening is we can see the PPT, but once the PPT pops up and it starts, basically presenting, we can't see that presenting window. So
Okay, understood.
yeah, so you go to where you stop presenting. That's okay. You don't do the presenting part of it. I think that's okay.
Okay.
Tejas? Yeah.
Okay. Let me. I think I made a mistake over here. I think. Let me rectify it.
No issues, no issues. Don't worry. Actually, my mistake. I should have done a dry run with him. I didn't realize. We just both kept on discussing the content and all that stuff. I did not even ask him if he's done this earlier. My mistake. I should have done a practice this thing with him. Tejas, in case you are struggling, you just don't worry about presenting it. You just go on the slideshow and keep dragging that, this thing down. Just keep moving to the next slide. We'll be able to see. Don't worry.
Am I able to share my screen right now? Is it visible right now? Okay. Let me check.
I'll stop the recording. I'll start it again. No issues. We'll have 2 recordings.